When they called my name to receive the Purple Heart, I should have felt proud. Instead, I heard my sister whisper just loud enough for the room to hear. "Guess they give those to anyone who survives now." Laughter followed, not from strangers, from my own family. My hands shook as Admiral Cole pinned the medal on my chest, and I realized something cold and permanent. The people who should have been proud of me weren't just ashamed, they were hiding something. My name is Maya Tran, and that was the moment I learned the worst wounds don't bleed. The summer air at Charleston Navy Yard was heavy with salt and sunlight, warm enough that the polished brass buckles on our uniforms burned against the skin. I stood still among the ranks, my posture as rigid as the morning breeze, eyes fixed ahead, while my heartbeat refused to obey the calm I practiced for months. The stage lights caught the edges of the purple ribbon pinned to my chest, turning it into something too bright, too loud. I wasn't shaking because of pride. It was the third row on the left that kept my pulse uneven. My father sat with his arms crossed, his jaw set in that familiar half-disapproving line. My mother smoothed her skirt, forcing a polite smile that never reached her eyes. David leaned toward Chloe, who had her phone resting on her lap. The red light of a recording app blinking against her nails. They whispered, laughed softly, as if this ceremony were just another story to post later. I kept my gaze forward, though every breath pressed heavier in my throat. I used to believe surviving would make them proud. I believed scars meant proof of courage, not shame. But the way they looked at measured restraint, almost bored, felt like a verdict I didn't see coming. It wasn't pride I saw. It was the quiet question of why her and not us. When the announcer's voice carried my name across the hall, the world stilled for a beat too long. Then, just beneath the echo, I caught Chloe's voice, light and sharp, slipping through the silence. A few heads turned. Admiral Cole paused mid-sentence, his eyes cutting briefly toward my family before returning to me. The applause rose muffled and distant as I stepped forward. My fingers brushed the cool metal of the medal, but all I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears and the heavy stillness of the man in uniform watching from the stage. His gaze wasn't celebratory. It was searching, knowing. I'd always thought the Purple Heart was proof that I'd done something brave. That day, it felt like evidence of something far more painful waiting to surface. 3 days after the ceremony, I drove back to Mount Pleasant, the harbor town that raised me. The house still stood on Liberty Lane, a name that never fit. Paint peeled from the porch. The air smelled of rust, oil and salt, and the old wooden sign out front still read, "A family built on honor." The words looked carved in denial. Passing the empty shipyard, I slowed down. The clang of tools, my father's voice shouting orders, the sting of salt in my eyes, all memories. He once taught me how to patch holes in a hole, how to make broken things float. The last time I saw that look of pride in him was the day before I told him I was enlisting. Then came the slam of his fist on the table, loud as thunder. "No daughter of mine will wear navy blues." After that, we spoke through walls. My mother never shouted. She just whispered her gospel family first. "Maya, don't bring shame to us." Back then, it sounded like love. Standing there now, I knew it was fear disguised as virtue. Sometimes family first really means truth last. Upstairs, dust settled thick as regret. While cleaning out my mother's drawers, I found an old envelope stamped faintly with the seal of the Department of Naval Intelligence. Inside was a sheet so faded I had to hold it to the light. It read, "Ongoing observation, civilian access to classified medical data through Tran Contact." Tran Contact. The words crawled under my skin. No one here worked with the Navy except me. So, who are they watching? Before I could think it through, my phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Cole, "Lieutenant. We need to talk privately." It wasn't a request. It felt like a warning. That night, the harbor lights bled through the blinds, cutting pale lines across my father's office. The smell of metal and sawdust lingered. His desk was a shrine to who he used to be. Plaques, trophies, a mug turned upside down to keep out dust. The bottom drawer jammed, then gave way. Inside lay a single bank slip: payment received. Maritime Research Group, $7,500. Signed, M.T. Tran. My mouth filled with the taste of iron. He used to say, honor had no price. Maybe he'd just found the right buyer. I snapped a photo and sent it to Ben Carter, my old teammate. He replied after half an hour. Maya, that company's under investigation. They were part of the convoy leak in Yemen. My hand went numb. Ben sent another file: contractors under suspicion. Line 12, Maritime Research Group, suspected of trading medical convoy routes to foreign contractors. The phone hit the floor, the sound sharp as a gunshot. They hadn't just taken money. They'd sold the path that nearly killed me. Outside waves slapped the dock. On the desk, an old photo showed me in my graduation whites, my father's hand heavy on my shoulder. I touched the glass, my reflection merging with his. Who else could love you enough to raise you and still sell you out to the highest bidder? 3 days after leaving my parents' house, a message from Chloe blinked on my phone. Family dinner. Dad insists. Don't make it awkward. I didn't want to go, but part of me needed to look them in the eyes. The people who never thought I deserved to survive. The harbor light sat by the bay, its yellow lamps casting soft shadows over the tables. My family was already there, smiling like actors in a photo shoot. For them, this was a reunion. For me, it was a silent trial. My father leaned back, voice sharp under the charm. So, what now, Lieutenant? Going to be some kind of celebrity soldier? I kept steady, just doing my job. David smirked. Must pay better than ship work. Maybe you can loan us that medal for a while. Laughter rippled around the table. There are laughs that don't leave the mouth, only the soul of someone pleased to see you small. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Cole. We found something. Meet me after dinner. Don't alert them. My pulse froze. Across the table, Chloe filmed her plate for her followers, tagging it in proud family. The irony burned. After dinner, I went straight to the base. Cole waited in his office light, pulling across his desk. He slid a folder toward me. Bank records under David's name, payments from Maritime Research Group. They paid your brother regularly, Cole said. The same period your convoy was ambushed in Yemen. My voice broke. He wouldn't. Prepare yourself, he replied. The last line read, report submitted by D. Tran, verified by M. Tran. My brother, my father. 2 signatures tangled like blood. I left the base and drove across Ravenel Bridge. City lights shimmered below like fractured glass. If this was true, I'd spent my life saluting men who had aimed behind my back. The next day, I returned to the harbor light. Another meal, another performance. Chloe had a small camera ready. David arrived late, pale and sweating. My father started first. All this fuss over some paperwork. You're overthinking it. Maybe, I said. But the Navy doesn't overthink when soldiers die. Chloe snapped back. You think you're the only one who suffered. Dad almost lost everything while you were gone playing war hero. I stared at my glass of wine, its reflection purple like my medal. A tiny fly drowned inside it, thrashing until still. That was me trapped in bloodline, struggling to breathe. My phone buzzed again. Ben's message. Maritime Research is a shell company, a front for foreign intelligence, the same group that bought your convoy data. My hand shook. I turned to David. You ever hear of Maritime Research Group? He laughed weakly. Consultants, taxes. Dad cut in. Drop it, Maya. You don't bring work into family. You already did, I said. Silence crushed the table. Driving home, an unknown call came through. A man's calm voice. Stop digging, Miss Tran. Some things you're not supposed to know. The line went dead. In the mirror, a black truck trailed me for blocks before fading into the dark. That night, Admiral Cole's message waited on my screen. Report what you know, but prepare for backlash. My reply was simple. I'm ready. The glow reflected off my purple heart. For the first time, it felt like armor because the next war would begin at home. Charleston's night was cold and breathless when I pulled up beside the old shipyard. Sodium lights glowed weak through the fog painting. Everything the color of ghosts. The sound of waves against the rusted hulls was like steel sighing in its sleep. I used to learn balance here, how to walk on wet decks, how to steady my footing when the tide turned. Now I was here to find out who had knocked me off balance for good. The air inside was thick with oil rot and iron. The workbench was coated in dust, but one drawer had fresh fingerprints on it. I pulled it open. A small steel toolbox sat inside, heavier than it looked. Inside that, an external hard drive labeled MRG Reports 2022. I connected it to my laptop. The screen flickered, then filled with emails from DTRAN to Consultant MRG Subject Delivery Route Confirmation. And below it, keep it quiet from Maya. Schedule updated. My chest tightened. Those words, keep it quiet from Maya. Cut sharper than any bullet. I clicked another file, one marked Yemen Convoy Final. PDF. A list appeared. Evans Chan Rodriguez. The last line read casualty confirmed. 17 survivors. Mtran injured. Beneath it, my father's signature Mtran. He had verified their deaths. He had signed off the loss of men he once called countrymen. My legs gave way. I sat on the cold floor, the blue light from the screen washing over my face, the glow catching on my scar until it looked raw again. Some wounds don't close. They just change color when truth hits them. I sent every file to Admiral Cole. He called back within minutes. His voice was grave. Lieutenant, this is federal now. Well, take it from here, but you need to stay quiet. I answered without hesitation. Quiet is what got people killed, sir. Just before dawn, another message came through, anonymous this time. Don't involve the feds. You don't know who's watching. I looked out the window. A black pickup sat 2 blocks down, the driver's smoking eyes, hidden by the glow of his cigarette. He wasn't there to scare me. He was there to remind me I was being watched. That night, I sat by the window with the lights off, the Purple Heart cold in my hand. In Yemen, a bullet hit my shoulder. Tonight I felt the second one straight through the heart, and it carried my own last name. By morning the story broke everywhere. Local family under federal scrutiny for data breach involving Navy medical convoy. I turned on the TV and there we were. My family frozen in a photo from years ago, smiling beneath the headline, The Tran Family Scandal. The phone rang. My mother's voice was shaky. Maya, please. You're destroying us. No, Mom. You destroyed yourselves when you put a price on lives. We didn't know what David was doing. Then why did you cash the checks? Her breath caught on the line, then a sob. I couldn't tell if her tears were for me or for the ruin of her image. By noon, Chloe's video was everywhere, my sister's lies. PTSD and the Navy cover-up. She spoke with practice, tremble, mascara streaked like a soldier's war paint. Maya's a hero, but trauma changes people. She's confused. Within hours, the clip hit 200,000 views. Comment sections called me unstable, a liar, a traitor in uniform. I brought the hard drive to Admiral Cole. He read the reports without a word. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, heavy. Your family's under full investigation. I'm ordering you on temporary leave. So, I just sit here while they burn what's left of my name? I asked. Your silence will speak louder when truth does. He meant well, but silence had never been my ally. That night, David knocked on my door. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice trembling. It wasn't betrayal, Maya. It was survival. We just passed info. It wasn't dangerous. Then why are people dead, David. Why is my name in the files you sold? He said nothing. Just whispered the money was for Dad. The company was dying. Later, I found out Mom had used that same money to pay off the mortgage and buy herself a new car. When I confronted her, she cried. We thought it was compensation for your injury. Compensation doesn't come with a confidentiality clause, Mom. She collapsed into the chair, clutching my hand. I just wanted peace. You bought peace with blood. I walked the harbor that night. The wind rose, scattering salt into my throat. Street lights flickered like distress signals across the water. The storm wasn't coming from the sea. It was brewing in my veins. I looked down at my reflection, the purple metal glinting against the black water. If honor was an inheritance, then I was the last Tran left to carry it. The naval hearing room at Charleston headquarters was silent enough to hear the hum of the lights. The flag hung motionless above the panel. I sat in full dress whites, every crease sharp, the purple heart catching the sterile glow. Across from me sat Michael, Helen, David, and Chloe, my family once proud to say. Tran blood means honor, now unable to meet my eyes. On the battlefield, the enemy wears a different uniform. In this room, mine wore the same last name. The Navy prosecutor read the charges, his voice flat, but final. Classified convoy information was leaked through civilian contacts. Evidence traces directly to the Tran family. My father slammed a hand on the table. You have no proof we're patriots. Admiral Cole stayed calm. With a nod, he brought up the screen security footage from the shipyard. My father accepting a cash bag from a man in a maritime research jacket. The air vanished from the room. Then came the recording. Keep it quiet from Maya. The Navy doesn't need to know. His voice unmistakable. My mother sobbed. Chloe hid her face. David stared at the floor. They didn't need a sentence. Their silence was the verdict. Cole turned to me. Lieutenant Tran, would you like to say something? I rose. Only this. I didn't survive luck. I survived them. The room stayed still until Cole spoke again. Quiet, but sure. Courage isn't on medals, Captain. It's what you do when blood demands silence, and you speak anyway. As guards led them out, I stood, removed my gloves, and closed my hand around the metal. I had fought 2 wars, one for my country and one for my soul. Both left scars that would never fade. 3 months after the hearing, the uniform hung untouched in my closet. I was on what the Navy called honorable recovery. Leave a polite term for exile. The apartment in Charleston felt hollow. Every sound echoing too loud, the ticking clock. The faint hum of ships from the harbor. The distant cry of gulls that somehow made the silence worse. The news anchor's voice cut throughout the quiet. Michael and David Tran sentenced to 2 years federal probation. Chloe Tran banned from all media activity. Helen Tran pending investigation. I watched the screen for a few seconds, then turned it off. There were no tears left to shed. Justice doesn't always arrive with triumph. Sometimes it comes like a dull echo after an explosion, leaving only dust and quiet behind. That afternoon, Ben stopped by, still walking with the metal brace he called his souvenir. He smiled, that calm, forgiving smile I could never quite master. You can't heal where you were hurt, he said. Maybe healing isn't the goal, I answered. Maybe remembering is. He nodded. Then make your scars mean something. 2 days later, I got an email from a name I hadn't seen before. Aunt Maya. Mom said, you hate us because of a misunderstanding. I just want to know what really happened. I didn't reply, but that weekend there was a soft knock on my door. Sophie stood there, 16 nervous eyes, too familiar, the same gray-blue as mine once were before war, and family taught them how to darken. She clutched a laptop to her chest. I found Mom's old files. You should see this. The screen lit up with a video. Chloe speaking into her camera, splicing together naval documents, editing numbers, reshaping truth for views and sympathy. Sophie's hands trembled. I sent it to the FBI. I don't want to be part of the lies. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. There was something fierce and pure in that girl's voice. The kind of courage that comes only when everything around you has already fallen apart. I looked at her and felt something shift, something almost gentle. The last Tran had chosen truth. Maybe that was enough. I pulled her into my arms and whispered, "You didn't break the family, Sophie. You rebuilt it." The sunlight poured through the window, landing on the purple heart resting on my desk. For the first time, it didn't feel like a scar. It felt like a beginning. 5 years later, Charleston breathed under a violet sky. The harbor shimmered in that half-light between day and night, the water carrying the scent of salt and forgiveness. A new sign stood proudly at the end of the pier, Tran Institute for Ethical Service. It had taken every piece of me to build it brick by brick, truth by truth. Admiral Cole had given the first donation. Ben had designed the training program. Together, we built something that might outlive the shame of our name. Inside my office, the air smelled faintly of sea and old paper. On the wall hung a photo of the men who didn't make it back from Yemen. Next to it, the framed certificate marking the opening of the institute. On my desk, the purple heart rested beneath the soft light of dusk. It no longer spoke of pain. It whispered a different message now. You can be wounded and still worthy. The door opened softly, and Sophie stepped in. She was in her navy uniform now, the same shade of white that once made my father's temper flare. Her hair was tied neatly, her posture proud but kind. She smiled and asked quietly, "Do you ever forgive them?" I turned toward the fading light outside. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting," I said, "it's knowing the truth and still choosing peace." She studied me, then smiled again, gentler this time. "Then you finally found peace." I met her gaze and shook my head. "No, Sophie, I made it." When she left, I stepped onto the balcony. Below, the old shipyard had been reborn. The vessel once called the Faithful, my father's pride. Then his failure was sailing again, repurposed to carry relief supplies. Its new paint glowed gold under the setting sun. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries folding into the rhythm of the tide. The bells from the harbor rang in the distance, soft and steady, like a heartbeat that had finally learned to rest. I leaned on the railing, watching the water shift from violet to amber, the horizon blurring between sorrow and serenity. The day I received my medal, they mocked me. I used to wonder why. Now I understand. I carried something they never did. Courage to tell the truth, even when it shattered the family that raised me. The camera of memory froze that moment, the purple heart glinting against the sunset, its color merging with gold. Purple for pain, gold for peace. And somewhere between them, the life I had rebuilt, quiet, honest, unbroken.